Welcome to the Play Myself show. My name is Myles. I have Sheila Boy here. Sheila is a great friend of mine, and I have an awesome show in store for you guys today. Sheila and I met at the Edgar Casey Institute, where we attended life coach school in 2017. It's been a very interesting adventure since, and I've been following Sheila on her quest to become a greater coach and a human being. And I'm very delighted and grateful to have her on the show today. Sheila, please tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Hey guys, I'm from, of course, Virginia. I'm an intuitive life coach. So what I try to do is pretty much empower people not to think always intuitive, like in predictions, but in your soul development journey, like your immediate journey, your decisions. And so what I do is I try to empower and enlighten themselves to I call it your soul realization or your soul awakening. There's things that's been calling into your life. There's things that you're probably placing in your life right now, like relationships, career. And sometimes your emotional blocks or sometimes even your spiritual blocks is getting in your way. And what that does is you come to me and I try to bring it down, not into this woo level, because I always see people sometimes woo can feel very high spiritualist. So you think of psychics and, tarot cards and all that. But I'm letting people know today that spirituality can be more practical. It can be very down to earth, very humble. And so that's what I'm going to try to bring to you is pretty much a very humble approach to yourself, but your spiritual calling, your soul calling, why is I'm not happy right now in this moment? Why can I achieve my goals? What's blocking me? And I'll be very practical in the approach to you. I always tell people what I'm doing is trying to find your soul rhythm. And so that's what I'm trying to find in you. So you see your own soul rhythm so that you can fulfill the life that you want and the decisions that you're happy with by tapping into your soul rhythm. So that's pretty much what I do.
So when was the first time you realized you had this gift, I'll call it?
Well, it was, for me, I didn't know I had it when I was even younger. I remember memories around my, some people say, how can you remember that far back? But 3 years old, I remember seeing little spiritual things, like I call it elementals, but they're like gnomes. Some people call them fairies, but I remember seeing them when I was a kid, but people call those imaginary friends or something like that. And I started to notice when I was younger, but it didn't hit me until I got into my 16th year. Of course, your 16th year in your high school. And one of my friends that was a very popular very popular high school student, very athletic, I started to see him in my dreams weeks prior to his death. And I didn't know what it meant. I saw a young girl crying and I saw him and then the day before he died, he looked right at me and it was almost like he looked at me completely differently. And I turned to my sister. I said, did y'all see that? It's like, we did see that. And I said, y'all remember what I said yesterday? And I told him that I saw him yesterday just looking kind of sad, but like he had to go in a spiritual vision. And he looked at me. It was like he gave me pure acknowledgement. Like he knew he was not coming back. He looked at me like there was a greater love. And we're not close. We're not, high school best friends or anything. He looked at me just like I just knew what he meant. And then he passed that day. And I looked at my sister. I said, that was weird. And my sister was like, yeah, that was pretty weird. And then I started to see my school grades and I saw how my year was going to go in school. Still didn't catch on that it was a spiritual gift because I didn't, African-American families, we didn't talk about that. My family is very Christian-based. So it was just kind of weird. And then when I got almost on my 18th year, like I was getting ready to graduate, I just felt that calling. And that's when, everything started to kind of open up even more spiritually. Then I started to see more spirits. And when I mean spirits, I'm talking about an actual person kind of doing a reenactment of something I will see later in that day. That's how it started to come about. So it kind of started that way. And then I just felt this spiritual tug. And I remember walking outside to my mom's house and I just looked at this tree that we had, that my mom them had when they first moved there. They had this particular tree. And I just looked at the tree and it felt like nature spoke to me. And it looked at me. I just looked outside and I just heard this like knowing, like a clear voice knowing. It was my own voice. Said, there's a calling in your life. And it was like an impression. It wasn't like a voice. It was like an impression in my soul. And I was like, I'm like 18, 17 years old going, the only thing I know is I'm wearing Napster. And I was like, kind of shrugged it off. But every time I would walk outside, again, it hit me again. There's a calling in your life. Like nature spoke, but it was like a deeper calling. And that's when I called my grandmother and I was like, Mom, Grandma, something's happening in my life. I feel like there's a calling. I'm not supposed to go to the military. It was a big old story. And one day I just went, my grandma told me to pray. And I went and got the Bible. No lie. I went and got the Bible and just started reading. And I kept reading till I could read every picture, every page as a movie in my mind. That's how much I read the Bible. It was like when someone talked to me about the Bible, I could see it in my mind like a movie. And then, yeah, it kind of started from there.
Would you say that was the time where you realized, okay, this is what I was going to do for the rest of my life? Or
no,
different time?
Different time. When I started that journey and started to read that Bible, and I had my first spiritual, I call it apparition. And my apparition came about 35 days later. Because I went really deep into the Bible. I really started to study. I didn't know spirit. Remember, I was only 18. Like I said, I was on Napster all day long and playing Sims. And so when I started to read the Bible, I had to go find one. I had to go borrow one from my grandmother. And she holds on to her Bible, so I had to go buy one, which I didn't. I was really shocked at how much a Bible cost back then. It was $40. And I was like, wow, this is a $40 Bible. This must be important. This is how I was acting at 18 years old. Like, the Bible must be really important for me, $40. So I started to read it. And I turned one day in reading. I was reading Numbers. And I looked up and I could feel everything and everyone, like every emotion. Nobody was in the home, but I could feel my mom's thoughts, what she was hoping for, what she was looking for in her life. And, it was like she wasn't in my mom. She was like a different being. Like she was my mom, but she was like now much more in depth, much more deeper than I knew as mom. It was just a deeper impression. That's all I can tell people. It's like our soul, we're all learning ourselves in this life, this life that we call lessons. So yeah, it was a big time for me. That's when I started to, I can't remember the time. My sisters, I started to read the Bible and I turned, I said, I saw this particular being again, and he told me that I wasn't going anywhere. He just told me that I had a calling. And it's kind of annoying when you keep hearing somebody say you have a calling. And then out of the blue, I fell asleep one day. And I think I told you this story. And I said, I went to sleep and I woke up that morning and I felt something fuzzy on my forehead. And when I kept rubbing my forehead, I thought it was a bug. And I pretty much almost knocked myself out. And I hit my pillow and I looked at the pillow. There was a cross on my hand, like a golden sun-kissed cross, like the sun had shone in onto my hand, but it was on my forehead. But I moved and smacked it, thinking it was a bug. And the cross would not cover up. Like no matter how much I tried to cover up this cross, it wouldn't cover up. And I was in a bunk bed on the bottom. So that was even more bizarre. And I looked around. All of our windows was covered over, I call it in this frost paper. It was like, I don't know if you guys remember when you keep the coal out back in the day, but it was like this frost paper. So, the light couldn't just shine through like normal. And I was like, how is this cross here? And I couldn't cover it up. For 20 minutes, I watched this cross go off the wall, complete silence, no smell, no sound, nothing. My sister up in the bunk bed would not wake up for nothing. And I watched this cross and it disappeared. As soon as it disappeared, I could hear my mom cooking in the kitchen. My sister rolled over and I opened the door thinking I'm going to die and see Jesus. And I asked my mom, I was like, Mom, I think I'm going to die and see Jesus. Literally, I was like, I think I'm going to die. She's like, no, baby, I don't know what that was. She just looked at me all weird. I told my dad, he looked at me all weird. Everybody looking at me like an alien. And my one sister turns around, she's like, I have to leave you, but you need to go talk to Grandma. Because Grandma's, the Jesus woman over here. And I ran to my grandmother and we had a long discussion about God and Jesus and purpose and life. And she helped me calm down because I literally was thinking I was going home to see Jesus. And I said, okay, Grandma. And I left and went back on my normal routine of playing Napster and Sims that night. My sister looked at me before I went to sleep. She said, don't forget, I'm going to come and check on you later. I said, okay. Fall asleep. Next morning, my sister's running down the hall, barreling down the hall, actually. And she's like, don't move, don't move. She opens the door. She said, oh my God, it's on your forehead again. And she's literally screaming at me to stay where I'm at. Like, don't move. The cross is on your head. And she looked at me and, she watched it. And as soon as it got off my head, she's like, you can move now. And then we heard us watch the cross go up the wall again. We tore up the room too, trying to figure out where the cross is coming from. But we could never figure out where it came from. And then since then, I've been on that journey.
So, all right, so you say since then you've been on that journey, right? Mm-hmm. So how long after that did you say, okay, this is something I'm going to take serious? And I know you probably took it serious as it was happening and like months after. But when did you say, all right, I'm going to take it serious to where I have to identify my gift and use it with purpose to the point where I'm not hurting? Because I'm sure like there's times you might have spoke out of turn, telling somebody something, knowing that you're helping out. But you know how it is. Like, it's like if you see somebody, they like their boyfriend cheating on them or their girlfriend cheating on them, and you tell them you might want to fall back, and they look at you like, oh, here she go. Like, what?
Luckily, I was so discreet. I never had that happen until now. But it took me 6 years. So from 18 years old till I was about, I'm going to say 24, 25, I went on this journey of just trying to figure out why I was so in tune. I wouldn't even tell people that I was in tune. I wouldn't tell people I was psychic. I didn't tell them nothing. I just had a conversation with you and I will subliminally say it was in the conversation. Like, you should go in the military. Yeah, you should go to college. Like, oh my God, I did want to go to college. I did want to go to the Air Force. That's how I said I didn't get all woo-woo or overzealous. Like, God told me to tell you. I didn't do none of that. I was very discreet. But that right then, it took me about 6 years. It was a girl from New York, actually. I got into a public chat room, no lie. Public chat room. I was, playing around, laughing on this online chat room. And a girl came in and I looked at her. I was like, she has a cat. It was just weird. And I kept talking to this girl, and all of a sudden I told her about her business meeting. Didn't know at the time that this was a PR rep for a celebrity. And I was like, telling her, like, you're not going to close this deal, like, blah, blah, blah. This lady's like, give me your phone number. I'm calling you right now. And I'm like, okay. I give her my phone number. She calls, and I tell her pretty much everything she was doing in her job. Like, her job was like an extreme, like, high level of stress. I was like, you may need medication for this job. This job was so stressful. And she's like, everything you said was completely to the T. I have a business meeting tomorrow. There's a big contract for this particular person, blah, 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 blah. She wouldn't tell me who the celebrity was, but I just knew it was a celebrity. I could feel this energy of celebrity, red carpet. And she's like, I'm about to lose this job, because if I don't make this deal, I'm going to lose this job. This is the biggest job of my life. And I was like, it's so bizarre that I found you in this chat room. And she laughed. She's like, never. I wasn't going to come online. I came online to just get a break from this job. And I told her what she needed. And I became her advisor for about a year or so. And she was telling everybody, like, this girl needs to be a spiritual advisor. Like, she kept saying it over and over again, you need to be a spiritual advisor. She kind of got me on the road towards being more professional, more open to, hey, I have a service. And she kind of led me onto that journey. And I still am friends with her today. So it was really, really one of those moments where I had to get on this shockingly in a very popular social group, and end up talking. And I read people for like, when I got on like 8 p.m. I would stay on till like 5, 6 in the morning. Just reading people all night long. Wow. For free. And I did it for years. I did it free for years until I met her. And she kind of got me on the journey. She kept harassing me, like, you need to get going on bigger levels. I was like, and it took me a while until I came to Richmond. I came to Richmond about 2 years from that. And when I came to Richmond, that's when I went much more public, much more, let me help people and kind of get on this journey. But see, my journey was like, I didn't know a lot about these, I call it the psychic work. I learned that after I got into Richmond. I was more kind of, I call it leading by faith type of person. So it was really interesting, but she kind of got me there. Her name was Valerie. And she kind of got me there. She was the one that kind of like, hey, you need to do this professionally. You are way too good. You saved my life that day. Like literally, you saved my life. You helped me so much.
That's how I was like, you. That's how I was like, when it comes to like all of like the fear, like how big did fear or does fear play a part in just starting? You know, because you meet a Valerie, or before you kind of like, you know, you have this gift and it's like, okay, I might not know how to use it, or I might not know what to do, or you kind of feel like an imposter even taking money. Because I remember like when I first started coaching, like that was like the big thing. It was like, oh, don't pay me. I got you. I'll help you out. But then it's like, okay, if that's what I want to do, like if I want people to take me serious, I got to take myself serious. In other words.
Yes. So that took me, I'm going to say 20 years to kind of figure out, because literally when I first started doing it, I was doing it for free. I was just, if you saw me, it was going to be a very nice day. I was going to give you what you needed right in the middle of that grocery store. But you wouldn't have known. You would just thought it was a casual conversation, literally. For that day forward, it took me a lot of confidence. I had no confidence. I didn't have the belief that I could help people with, I call it the intuitiveness or the inner knowing. And it was her encouragement and then other people that followed suit, because I started to pay attention. I didn't pay attention when I was doing the gift at the whole time. I was just giving it. And she made me pay attention to how people was reacting when I gave the gift. And I said, oh my God, I didn't realize that. And that's when I said, I have to try it. Let me just try it one time. And I went to a spiritual festival, nothing I was used to. Remember, I'm a Christian walking in, and I'm like, oh my God, this is totally outside of my realm here. And I sat down, and a girl came up to me and she said, hi, you doing readings? And I'm looking at her like, yeah. And she sat down, and I just read her to a T. And she was crying. This was a very young girl. She was about 18 years old. I'll never forget it. And that's when I started seeing things that I didn't understand. And I had to really hone in. I had to really hone in my gift a bit and helped her out. She went from not depressed when she left. When she left, she was like a complete beam of sunshine. But when she was sitting in my chair, she was like really clouded, very depressed, very low, you know, it was just deeply depressed. But when she left, she was like beaming like the sun. And I remember, I can never forget it. I remember her maybe 2 months later meeting her somewhere, and she's screaming in the middle of the parking lot, I know you. And I looked at her, I'm like, wow, you're not depressed. And she's like, no, I wasn't depressed after that no more. I was like, oh, look at her stunned, because she was completely different. The second time I saw her, I thought she would kind of go back into her world. But she came back completely different. She's like, you helped me so much that day. I'm no longer depressed. I'm living, and I left this person, and I'm doing all these things. And so that made me go professionally. I went and started hanging out with more spiritual people. And I pretty much had to kind of educate myself how to do it. I had to learn from them. Those other people that were, I call it tarot readers and psychics, I had to learn from them how to do the business, because I did not know. I had no clue at all. They taught me. And I always tell people, sometimes people get kind of crazy about tarot readers and psychics. They helped me kind of professionalize my gifts, because I did not know what I was doing at first. I was very fearful, and they helped me. They had to educate me what I was seeing a lot. Some of the things I was seeing, there was another medium there. She turns to me, she's like, this is what you're seeing, and this is what you do. And that's when I started going to healing sessions. I started to become a Reiki master, and then I started to heal what I saw.
Right. That was my question. Like, yeah. When you really, do you feel like you were welcomed in that community from the beginning, or was it like did they see your gift, or was it like I'm here, I'm new, I see these things, what do I do? Did you automatically gain a mentor, or was it just, I'm here now and I'm like an outcast and we're all here together? So
it was crazy. I was so lucky. I was very lucky. I met a very intuitive woman, and it was my first day ever being in a spiritual setting. I remember her so to the T. I walked in, she said, "This is what I do for a living." She was pretty much saying, "This is what I do for a living, like spiritual work. I do deliverance, and I'm a psychic as well." And she's a Christian as well. And so she said, "Read me." And I turned around, and I knew she was very eccentric. And I said, "Okay." And I started to read her, and I kept telling her about this little girl that I kept seeing. And she says, "Yes, I do have a child spirit that follows me." And I said, and I read her too. And since then, I kind of was under her wing. I'm not gonna say under her wing, but she kind of gave me, you can come in here. You can definitely read here. You have a gift, have a seat. I was like, okay. And I did. I literally sat down. She said, "How much you want to charge?" I was like, "I have no idea. 15, 20 to 35. She's like, "That's it. Let's go." And the people start coming in. And then all of a sudden, the line was out the door to see me.
Wow.
And that's when people started hating. Then at first I was getting nothing but mad love. And then when it got to the point where I was, the line was out the door and nobody wanted to see nobody else but me, I was like, uh-oh. That's when I had to kind of like, do that big extra gulp, like, okay, let's make sure you be humble. Let me get this together real quick. But I left like maybe a year after, like maybe 6 months after that, because it was starting to, I definitely didn't want to be ruffling feathers. But yeah, I remember when I started, the line was like 4 or 5 people coming. It was brand new. And before you know it, the line was out the door. It was out the door. I was like, wow, they came to see me.
Being that you met at life coach school, like what made you want to become a life coach? Like, did you see the 2 gifts, or did you see it like, okay, because life coaching is about service and, helping other people get what they want, but because you kind of had a head start on it, and that was my intention from going. When I met you, it was at the Edgar Casey Institute, and I was like, wow, like everyone here is intuitive, like minus myself. So it was kind of surreal, but at the same time, you guys were all very welcoming. So I took it on to myself, like, okay, these people have a gift, they just don't know how to sell it, or these people have a gift that they don't know how to control, and this might be a way to kind of like, things, but you can take people through like the slow process of it, which might be life coaching. But how did you see it?
Okay, when I went there to be more credible. Okay, I did not want to be known as a seer or a psychic. I wanted to be known as the wise woman. I wanted people to see me as a Christian base, because when people think of oracle or psychic, they sometimes can get a little witchy type vibe. And so I went there, and I remember talking to a group of women before I went, and I was like, how can I help people with my intuitive gifts and them not fall into prediction-based readings? I was like, I want them to have a conversation with me and themselves in spirit, but helping them on their soul development level. And the girls like, life coaching. That's why I went. That's why I went to life coaching. I wanted to help people not see themselves as a prediction. Like what I say is an outcome. I want you to know that when I gave you something that was probably for like a future base, I want you to know that you could either get that or not. You make the decision.
Right.
If you want it or not. Right. And sometimes you can't tell everybody everything. Sometimes I tell people very little. Some people want me to tell, sometimes when you get into a psychic reading, you want to know everything. I'm telling people right now, like sometimes it's not a good idea to know everything, because you will cut it from yourself. You will stop doing the work that's necessary sometimes. Sometimes I can't tell you everything.
Yeah, and just on a spiritual level, I can say, okay, when I was in the institute, right, I met a lot of very intuitive people, right? But a lot of people there, they seemed like they could have been like on the other side. They might not have been like, Christianity based as far as faith was concerned, but I still looked at them like good people. So I looked at it like, okay, this person believes what he or she believes, but that's not like any of my concern. Like they're willing to, worship who they want to worship.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because like everybody wasn't welcoming at first, but you still felt the positive energy, and we all had our own purpose there.
Right. Yeah. That helped me too. I actually studied world religion to, like, for instance, when I became that life coach, when you saw me that week, I was already in my mind studying like Indian faith, Buddha, and pretty much all the other, I'll call it worldly religions. So that when I had a client come to me that was completely different from Christianity, I knew their deity. I knew their ritual like their ritual habits, diets. I knew I wanted to be that well diverse. So that when you saw me that week, I was really cramming, like studying, so that I could be more, I call it more worldly, more open to all perspectives of, I call it the earth. And that was big. That was a big change. And those people there at the Agna Case were really beautiful people. I think there was a couple of shamans there too. I think one of them seemed like a shaman, and he was very cool. I can't remember his name, but I think he was from Chile. But he was very cool about it too.
I remember.
Yeah. I thought he was a very cool, very unique soul as well. So yeah, I love that. But I learned a lot from doing Edgar Casey's life coaching, and trying to make sure that when I presented myself with a level of understanding and credibility. That's what I was literally went to life coaching for. So that when I help people, I help them with an organized fashion, because I didn't want to be all over the place trying to help people and didn't realize I wasn't organized. I didn't have, like information or, like go-to resources, understanding that I wasn't a psychiatrist, that I'm a life coach, and that sometimes I need to redirect and refer people to other people. And that's when I started to gain more client referrals. I started to work with a lot more psychiatrists. I went to a lot more helping centers for domestic violence and stuff like that. Like I had to start becoming more aware, because I started to have a lot of female clients. And then I was like, well, a lot of these female clients was going through some domestic issues and relationship stuff. And I had to call some friends who was experiencing psychology or really experiencing drug addiction and emotional behaviors that I had to study like deeply after that experience of Edgar Casey. I mean, actually, to me, it opened me up even more to be discerning of people's life experiences.
Right, because the block could be different, right? Like, so the block could be, okay, somebody has this control over you, and it's not you. It's not your, your mind. It's just that, your belief in somebody else is bigger than your own belief in yourself.
Yeah.
So when you go to a school like Edgar Casey and you already have your gift, because I went through like a similar journey as far as just like, I found myself at the time, I would say when I went to the Institute, I was like really interested in like religion and really interested in what other people thought. And it was something that drove me to the school. And my mom is the one who actually said, all right, you need to go to this school. My mom's a lifetime member and she's been going for a while. She hasn't done the life coach certification, but she was like, look, you'll really find some good people here no matter what. And I was hesitant at first, but I want to know what drove you to that particular institute.
Actually, I've been going there for almost a couple of years. I've been wanting to go. Ever since I started to know that I had an intuitive knowing, I wanted to know Edgar Casey. So I started to read up on Edgar Casey. I found a book somewhere. I don't know where I got that book from. And I drove my sisters crazy when I first went to Edgar Casey Center many, many years before I went life coaching. And I was like, I have to go here. Something's telling me to go here. And I went there on a whim just to go check out the library, check out the vibe, and look at the little, I think it's a lamp brush that they have out there in the front. And it was an energy I wanted to feel. Like, why was he gifted, or how did he utilize his gifts to help people? And that's why I went to Edgar Casey. I wanted to see how he helped people with his unique gifts. And it was really good. It was great. I learned a lot. I grabbed a lot of books when I was there. And that's what really pulled me to Edgar Casey was the center, was to see how he used his gifts to help other people, and who was there, like who else was kind of in that same path as me. Is when we come to Edgar Casey, how we're helping I call it a global collective.
Right. So as in closing, I ask you like this question that I think it has a lot of value. If you could, speak to a 13 to 16-year-old girl who might feel like she has the same gift as you, if she listens to this show, what advice would you give her or him? Like, what's the advice you give?
Okay, first thing I would tell them is to be gentle with themselves first. That's what I would tell myself back then, is to be gentle with yourself first, that you're going to feel so much, not just yourself, but everyone in your house, everyone in the global collective of Earth. You're going to feel them on a deeper level. And to take a deep breath and to only look at one person at a time. Look at yourself. And then when you see someone, look at them only one at a time. Don't look at the room as a mass whole. It'd be too much. And to understand that if they're shy or they kind of want to cower inward, because I know there's a lot of empaths, they kind of become sometimes they want to hold within, they kind of go within to their spirit, is to allow themselves to shine the best way they know how. Like your light, your smile, your words are power, even at 13 years old. Your wisdom, I was smart. When I say I was smart, I was really, really smart at 13 and 14 years old, more ahead than some 17-year-olds. So don't allow your age to say that you're not intelligent, that you're not wise. You are wise. Just to be confident in what wisdom you share. Like when you start to become confident, start giving wisdom at that age, be confident in when you speak it. Allow your words to flow out love, like feel the love when you're giving it. Sometimes people think that wisdom has to be forceful, harsh, just exude it from the heart. Like when you see somebody crying, your mom crying, or a peer that's crying from bullying, start to soothe your voice, the tone of your voice, exude love, because you are love. So I always tell people that's how you do from 13 to 17 years old, is that you know that you're loved, and then you are able to exude it so that you don't get overwhelmed, but one person at a time, not the whole room.
That is very powerful. One last thing on that same subject, is it always okay to share your gift? Like, should they seek anything, or should it just, stay dormant until they realize that, like, how do you practice by yourself, essentially?
Okay, so this is me. Now I'll tell them that they can do this on their own. Writing is the best form of expression in spirit, especially if you're young to the point where you want to build confidence in your gifts. I'm going to tell people, draw anything creative, music, singing, writing, dancing, art, singing bowls, coloring, crafting. Even though it's not a literal speaking, you're expressing the creative energy of healing through your energy. When you are that intuitive at that young age, I want people to understand that energy does not always have to be said. It can be given through art, action, vibration, and dance and movement.
That's beautiful.
So sometimes some young people are very shy. They can't speak to everybody, but they can color, they can draw, they can express themselves through writing.
Yes. So Sheila, thank you. Sheila Boyd, the wonderful Sheila Boyd, the powerful Sheila Boyd. Sheila, can you tell the audience where they can find you if they want to know more?
Yes, you can come to my website at www.sheilamboyd.com. And that's also my Instagram, Sheila M. Boyd. And you can just check me out there. Will be doing some daily insights on my Instagram. So you definitely want to follow. And I will be doing videos on there as well. And check out my packages.
Thank you, love. I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Turn this up.